You are listening to Rouge Radio, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's time to get the point as Rouge Radio is ready to kick off.
Ready!
The best football talk with the best in the business.
So what is the cost? You have 2 first-round picks this year because the Argos are dumb enough to trade for Drew Willie.
A few rookies.
We go directly to the on-field product. We welcome to the show the 20th overall pick in this past Sunday's CFL draft, DeAndre Wright of the Alouettes. DeAndre, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
And the occasional Hall of Famer.
Please welcome Doug Brown, who is one of the members of the current class of 2016 in the CFL Hall of Fame. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, guys, for the kind words and for having me on the program.
Rouge Radio is on the air. Here's your hosts, Robert Dalton and Tony Allen.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rouge Radio Podcast, episode 356, powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network. My name is Robert Dalton, and joining me is my good old buddy, 356 episodes later, and we still have not met Mr. Tony Allen from Medicine Hat, Alberta. Tony, how's everything going?
It's going fantastic, and you?
It could be better, getting prepared for back to school next week. Are both your 2 oldest ones? Are they going to school this year or this week?
My oldest is going into grade 2, and my youngest is starting an early learning program. And I don't know, when I was a kid, it would have been called junior, but I don't know if they have a junior kindergarten. To me, that's what it feels like. It's half days, Monday to Friday. So my son is very upset because he hates school, and I told him, well, it doesn't get any better. It's always going to suck at school. And my daughter's excited because she gets to go to school with her older brother.
Yeah, just tell the oldest one, just wait till he gets to grade 6 or junior high. Whatever middle school is, yeah. That's when the stress comes out in droves.
There you go.
We've got a great show lined up. We've got Tony's Magnificent Bastard. We've got the Mystery Deck. And, of course, we got our 3-down hot takes and our Week 12 predictions. And as we always say, the season only starts around Labor Day. So we can't wait to get around that. Let's get on to our 3-down hot takes before we get everything. It's sponsored by SeatGiant.ca. Enter the promo code Rouge for discounts on your sporting events anywhere in Canada, whether it's football, hockey, baseball, lacrosse. I'm sure that they have lacrosse in SeatGiant.ca. Enter the promo code Rouge for discounts in your area. Let's go to our first down hot take.
Especially now. Goodbye. Touchdown. Ja'Garrett Davis. 2 picks by a rush end. 1 for a touchdown.
Now, this is 2 weeks in a row we've had Matt Nichols controversy. So last week we gave him the benefit of the doubt because he spoke his mind, because he gave so much of his body towards not only this organization, but he felt that he gave it all towards the fans, the city, and the organization. And he felt that it was disrespected by being booed against the Ottawa Red Blacks. Fast forward a week later, now he's not being booed because it's in Calgary, in foreign territory. But comments made after the fact, he said that, and I quote, now out of context this really sounds bad, but in context, still probably shouldn't have been said anyway, saying that he went through 4 or 5 of his reads before he was able to find anyone, and no one was able to be open. So the question here, the hot take is Matt Nichols playing and is talking his way out of Winnipeg, or is he getting railroaded by the Winnipeg media? Tony, I'll let you start on this one because you are Matt Nichols' biggest fan.
Well, and I'm his. It seems to be the only one that has sympathy for him right now because he doesn't seem to be getting a lot. And a couple of days ago or yesterday, as this recording, when you listen on Tuesday night, I did a podcast for a CFL podcast based out of Winnipeg, and it sounds like it's just an absolute Nichols roast out there where people are just irate at the poor guy. And you know what? Last week we had one new listener, and their only complaint was me not saying you can't, like it says me saying you can't boo your home team, and that was a case where I thought that was wrong, and I don't know. It's for things to turn on Matt Nichols so quickly, and like I said in this podcast the other day too, you know, Matt Nichols can't win for losing right now, and trust me, he's losing as well. And people just, for some reason, I don't understand how they can attack so well. And here was a guy who was trying to give media what they want, and that's honest answers. What do media complain about? Oh, players just give these lay-down answers, and they give such boring, generic answers. Oh, we give 110%, and we need to make adjustments, and we bellyache about that. And then finally a quarterback comes along and tells you what he thinks, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, he gave us something, whether it was taken out of context or not. And actually, when I was hearing these comments, I thought it was funny because we just had a conversation about perception being reality, and then watching Milt Stegall and Davis Sanchez arguing on how you're supposed to interpret it, his remarks. And I thought it was nice, and maybe believe that Davis Sanchez might have been the only one who actually understood what Matt Nichols was saying. You asked me what the problem was, and I took a read, and there was nothing there. And of course, you've got Milt Stegall, who felt it was completely hanging his receivers out to dry, and Davis Sanchez tried to explain, well, maybe he's just talking about how good Calgary's receiver or defense was. Maybe this was a boost just to what it's like playing Calgary's defense and not about my receivers. And, now all of a sudden it's turned into this complete disaster. And for some reason, Matt Nichols' career is spiraling. If anything, when I look at this situation, one, I think it's unfortunate this is happening to Matt Nichols. And on another thing, if I'm a Winnipeg Blue Bomber, why am I going to talk to the media now? Why am I going to give the media anything but generic yes and no answers? Because one player gave you his thoughts, and it's jeopardized his entire career with his team now. So I think as fans and media, we need to decide what we want players to say. Do we want them to be honest, or do we want them to say what we want to hear? Because Milt Stegall's big thing was you talk about yourself. You talk about yourself. Well, that's great, but of course we expect you to get in there and say, it was on me, it was my fault, me. And for whatever your belief is, that's still just a generic answer. Oh, he's just taking all the blame. And so we as fans, maybe as media, we need to say to ourselves, do we want Matt Nichols doing this? Do we want players to give us honest answers? And if we do, then we need to report on the honest answers. We need to stop filling in blanks that might not even be blanks there to fill in, and report. But of course, social media is going to take over, and you've got those things. But right now, if I'm Winnipeg Blue Bomber, I am not answering a single media question anymore, because we need to find out, do we want honest answers, or do we want players to blow sunshine up our skirts and give us all the right answers and give us the most diplomatic answers possible? I think what's happening to Matt Nichols is absolutely wrong, and I would hope, I'm trying not to talk down to anyone in Winnipeg who's listening to this and is a Bombers fan, and I hope you kind of see what this looks like to somebody on the outside looking in. It is a great quarterback. It is a player that doesn't get in trouble with the law. We can't Duron Carter him on this one. We can't suddenly, maybe they have. You've seen the newspapers there. I haven't. I would hope there is nothing to start raking up about Matt Nichols and his past and his career to try and vilify this guy. He has given everything to that franchise. He wants to get into that city and make it great. And somehow after 2 games, it sounds like fans don't even want Matt Nichols to start this football game. So it was a very long-winded answer, because I find it so frustrating that for someone who doubted Matt Nichols right from the get-go, if you've been listening to this podcast since I joined it, you knew my initial history with Matt Nichols was a question to Dave Campbell when he was a guest on our show, when Matt Nichols was still in Edmonton, explain Matt Nichols to me. And someone who's very stubborn as I am and opinionated was able to learn what Matt Nichols was capable of. And to see this happening now, I see a guy who's getting railroaded, unfortunately, for being honest to the media, and now suddenly we all hate honesty, apparently.
Yeah, I'm of the belief here that some of it is not necessarily hatred. I think it's doubt that Matt Nichols hasn't been able to find his chemistry, his mojo, so to speak, from that he had last year. And add to the fact that his stats aren't up to where they were and what everybody expected them to be. But now they're losing, and then add to the fact that the comments post game. So all that, mix all these ingredients into one big pot or whatever, mix it up, and boom, you have everybody second guessing him as a player, as a man, as a human being. And you're right, it's wrong. I think this guy has given it all to the city, to his organization, and to the fans. Where people really should be focusing on is that defense. I don't know. Now, I don't care if it's Calgary's offense. I don't care if it's Ottawa's offense. When you start holding teams to limit them to the points, but you're still giving up huge amount of yards per in the air, and that's been going on for 4 freaking years. Tell me, it's not one guy. It's got to be. Well, I shouldn't say one guy. It's not hanging on the quarterback. It's not hanging on the offense. Man, you got to look in the mirror at Richie Hall, because right now, because you're not having in-game adjustments. You're not having any kind of adjustments during halftime, first, second, third quarter. But Kyle Walters went out and he re-signed Drake Nevis. He signed Adam Bighill, which is supposed to be this God almighty middle linebacker that this team's lacking since Barron Simpson 10 years ago. And he gave you all this. You have a very good a young secondary coming into its own. They added Chandler Fenner. You've got all this talent, and you're having the same problems. I know this is a hot take is based on Matt Nichols, but one of the things that Matt Nichols is getting railroaded for is because the Bombers are losing. I don't think he's not performing up to his standards. They're not losing because of Matt Nichols. This is all on the defense, and to be honest with you, everybody should be focusing less on Matt Nichols and more on the defensive coordinator of Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And you know what? To be honest with you, now that we're at it, I'm a big fan of Mike O'Shea. Huge fan of Mike O'Shea. And I think that he's too loyal to a fault. I think if the Bombers miss the playoffs, and I don't think they will, but it is a huge possibility that if they miss the playoffs, if he says that Richie Hall is coming back for another year, I think he's forcing Kyle Walters' hand into firing him. Whether or not it happens during the course of this season or in the off season, he's forcing the general manager's hand into firing him. So sorry to railroad that because that was your subject that you wanted to put on the show. But you know what? It's just we dealt with Matt Nichols last week, and I think it's really unfair for comments where we're always asking for honesty, especially the media. I mean, the media was like, throughout, not only in the city, but in major CFL markets, and we're talking Saskatchewan, Edmonton, and Calgary, where the media was just really frothing at the mouth, right? Like they were just chomping the bits, just right to get when they found out that they were able to get interviews with the assistant coaches. And what did we hear from them? We heard more of the same. We didn't hear anything of substance. So now you get a quarterback who's telling you his hard-hitting feelings, and well, it's now going back to the norm where we're going to be spouting out our opinions as opposed to facts, right? Someone said that Matt Nichols comes out and says, well, I went through 5 reads and I couldn't find anyone open. Well, who gives a
Oakley dokley
about context? Let's just quote that. That's it. Let's go to our second hot take. The BC Lions lost on a last-minute third down gamble against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. It wasn't easy. It wasn't pretty, but the Saskatchewan Roughriders pulled it off. But once again, the BC Lions end with a failed third down gamble. And my question here is, did the BC Lions season end with that one third down gamble? Because it's been a lot of them. They've been failing, but is it just the one last third down gamble that pretty much seals the deal for the BC Lions playoff hopes? Tony.
Yeah, it was the first thing that popped into my head, and it seemed, it didn't even seem that far-fetched. I was almost going to be trying to be a little modest and say, you know what, I thought about it, and I'm like, well, there's no use to be dramatic. And then I thought, you know what, it isn't dramatic. That third down gamble that failed might have been the BC Lions season, because that's another loss behind that pack in the West. And it is very difficult to pick up points within your division. You are now talking about winning consecutive games inside the West. Teams are going to start playing each other inside of the West, and there's a lot of points to go there around now. You are really going to need another team in the West to drop a few games, because even winning one and losing one is going to be hard to overcome a full 4 points, and especially if you're going to need to leapfrog those teams in front of you, and you take another loss to the Eskimos, you take another loss to the Blue Bombers, you're not catching the Calgary Stampeders. They're 10 points clear of you. The best you can do is hope they take a night off, and that's the game that sneaks you in for a crossover, or something. But it really was a game that BC needed to win, and very well could have won, and probably should have won. I don't care a lot for a lot of rhetoric in the CFL when people say, "Oh, that's so CFL-y," and "Oh, that's typical CFL." But in this case, this one does ring true because you can't pick holes in it. They give you a yard at the line of scrimmage. You should get the first down on a 3rd and 1, which one tells me something about that BC Lions team was not prepared enough in that situation to just get that guaranteed first down. And it also tells me that's a pretty impressive defense for the Saskatchewan Roughriders to come up that clutch. I don't know if we're somewhere in the middle on both of them, that, it was part BC not playing well and part Saskatchewan being as good as we think they were. But if you want to now try and catch, you're basically after the Rough Riders and the Bombers, maybe the Eskimos if things go downhill. But again, you're 6 points behind the Edmonton Eskimos right now, and you think you're going to pick that up post-Labor Day? Good luck to you, BC Lions, because I don't think that is an option for you anymore. You've got Winnipeg and Saskatchewan in front of you now, and to drop a game the way they did and unable to win football games on the road, there's no guarantees, but I would not have a lot of hope for the BC Lions for the rest of this season, no matter any streaks they get on. I probably would say the BC Lions are done.
They're done with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers schedule-wise. So right now, Winnipeg has that season series. So, I mean, if BC really needs to make the playoffs, they really have to hope that Winnipeg's snide continues as much as it does. Otherwise, even if Winnipeg wins a couple here and loses a couple here, they're probably going to stay ahead of them. So I don't think they're catching Saskatchewan. I don't think, even if Edmonton lays an egg for a few games, I honestly don't think that they're catching them. They've got a couple of games, I believe, in October against the Eskimos. Actually, no, that's the one game is against Edmonton, and they've got a couple against Calgary. You're not catching Calgary. You're really hoping for a couple of losing streaks to happen with Edmonton and Winnipeg in order to catch them. And Winnipeg's schedule is against a couple of Western Division opponents, like against Saskatchewan back-to-back, and we'll preview that. I believe they've got... I'd really have to look at the schedule before I actually look for it on this one. But it's not an easy schedule. I think Edmonton has a couple of, obviously, back-to-back against Calgary, and then they have a couple against the East. So, I mean, their schedule gets kind of easier after the Labor Day rematch. But, again, it's a CFL. There's a lot of more parity this year than there ever was after 11 weeks. But with BC, they just seem to find, and let me see if I can actually pronunciate this better. Their clock management seems to be very infallible. Like, they can't get that crap together enough, right? And it's like it's not that BC's playing terrible, and it's not that they're a terrible team, and that they've got terrible coordinators, they got a terrible quarterback. No, that's like they've actually got talent. Defensively against the run, it could be better. But it seems to be the more mental errors, and they can't fix that. These mistakes that they're doing seems to be mistakes that you should be fixing roughly around week 3 or week 4, and they're not doing that. This is week 12 that we're going on to, right? And if you haven't gotten that together at this point, then chances are you're really not going to get it together for the remaining 9 weeks. So with that being said, I don't think I could agree with you more, Tony. I think that the BC Lions playoff hopes are all but dead. So we go into our third down hot take here, because we mentioned him by name in the first take here. Chris Streveler, McLeod Bethel Thompson, and Anthony Pipkin Are these the next generation of quarterbacks? Has the next generation of quarterbacks in the CFL, have they arrived at this point? Tony?
Not yet. They are starting to turn heads. They're getting people ramped up. Right now, out of the three, Bethel Thompson seems like the most likely, ready to step up into that role of gunslinger in the Canadian Football League. Pipkin got us excited because we didn't know who he was and came in and threw for 300 yards and a couple of touchdowns and breaking Alouettes records. And so, okay, that's going to get you hyped up. And Strevler, we've got a taste of what this kid can do, and it's got us jacked up. So much so, in just the couple games he played, he does have fans around areas reading tweets that would rather this kid come in over the Labor Day weekend and have a shot at the Saskatchewan Roughriders. So if nothing else, the people in Winnipeg are probably pretty excited for this, because when we did our 9 teams in 9 weeks, and basically when Matt Nichols went down at the beginning of the season, we all pretty much wanted to write the Winnipeg Blue Bombers off. I think actually you were surprisingly one of the skeptical ones that didn't think it was going to be so bad. And my best case scenario was getting it out of 500. But then he came in and looked extremely good. I think we've got 3 quarterbacks ready to take that next step, look comfortable enough to take that next step. I wouldn't say they're officially here. We need to see obviously more out of Pipkin. Chris Strevler, I wouldn't say he's got a lot to do to get ahead of Matt Nichols, depending on how that story unfolds for the remaining 8 weeks or something of the season. And Bethel Thompson, I think, is settling in nicely in Toronto. So I won't say our next wave of young guns are here, but it does look very promising.
I just like to say that with Pipkin, he's there because of injury, right? Because of Manziel and Drew Willie. So the fact is that he's got a little bit of a longer leash to F up. Whereas the other two, they're there. Well, I mean, Strevler's not exactly there because he's still in the backup position, but the fans want him there because of the incumbent, his production. McLeod Bethel Thompson's there because of the incumbent, or I guess the backup quarterback, James Franklin, his production. And to be honest with you, I'm with you on this one. I don't think we're there yet, because let's be honest. The Toronto Argonauts paid a lot. I shouldn't say a lot, but they paid a draft pick. They shipped out a second round projected offensive lineman in Mason Woods to Edmonton for James Franklin. They want him to be the next guy when Ricky Ray finally hangs his cleats. Chris Strevler is probably not going to get another shot unless Matt Nichols injures himself or gets traded, depending on how the situation happens there. Anthony Pipkin is probably going to be there for the remaining of the season no matter what, because I think Montreal's season is shot to already. No matter what they're going to be doing against Eastern opponents or what they have for the rest of the schedule, I think their season is shot right now. I think right now they're playing for next year because they don't have a heck of a lot of first-round picks to go into the next few years. So I think Pipkin is there just because he has to be, because there's no one else able to. So other than that, I think Pipkin is there. I think he's got all the tools. When you combine all three as far as the quote-unquote next generational talent, I really think that we need a lot more situations, a lot more scenarios to be played out before we can actually label that as a possibility. Well, that'll do it for our 3-down hot takes. Again, this is sponsored by chan.ca. Go to chan.ca and enter the promo code Rouge for discounts on tickets on any venue for any event. And it includes concerts, sporting events, football, CFL, and I don't even know if the NFL, if they have it, but it's in all Canadian funds, so don't even have to worry about that as well. Tony, let's get on to our magnificent bastard. Who grabbed your attention this week?
Oh my God! Number 1! Seinfeld, you magnificent bastard!
For me, this was super easy because he was an absolute beast in his Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and I'm sure you do not want to relive this moment, Dalts, but I just thought it was a combination of just an absolutely horrible pass, or I don't even know if you can call it a pass. If it was, it's the wrong guy, but for a defensive lineman to catch a football alone is a pretty outstanding feat. Please don't, all you defensive linemen, come and beat me up. But when the ball is thrown right at your face, and for a defensive lineman to grab that rumble in for a touchdown, and especially on a game when he had 2 turnovers, 1 going for 6 yards, to me personally, I think it was a no-brainer to give it to Jared Davis, although his partner in crime there on the offensive side that did a little damage, Kamar Jordan, did the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I just thought, you love to see the big guys get the ball. You love to see the big guys rumble into the end zone and do a big guy lineman dance. So for this week, Jared Davis, you magnificent bastard.
There we go. No need to drag on that for this week.
No need to talk about it at all.
This is a new week.
Yeah.
Unless we go through it next week, because I anticipated the same result. Anyway, mystery deck. I see that by notifications on the phone, you've tweeted something out. What do you got for me?
Yes, I always question. I'm like, I'm not anyone's lying, but I'm hoping these are all legit because it is fun, and it seems like the first person to answer always knows. But on the other hand of that argument, they're different people, so maybe we just get an answer only when the person who's 100% confident knows. And I can say Fake Gainer did get it, so we have a right answer because it was backed up with a lot of "you're right, I think you got it, I think you got it," and he did get it, so good job. Don't go to Twitter and check it out then, Dalts, but here's your mystery player of the day. 2010 to 2013, he was a Calgary Stampeder.
All right.
Then he joined the Ottawa Red Blacks in 2014 for 1 season, playing all 18 games, and then spent 2015 and 16 with the BC Lions.
I'll
give you a little bit to mull that over to see. It should be a point system. We should have 10 points if you can get it just on the teams. And then if you need positions, we knock it down to like 5 points and then 1 point if you need like basically a gimme shot.
At first I was actually going to say Kevin Glenn, because Kevin Glenn went from Calgary to Ottawa and then to BC. But he never actually played for Ottawa. So he played for BC in 2014, so I know that's out. Who was on that 2013 team?
So for the full 10 points, can you get 2010 to 2013 in Calgary, 2014 in Ottawa, playing all 18 games for them, 2015 and 16 with the BC Lions? If not, I can give you a position, which will knock you down to 5 points, and then I can start giving you stats for only 1 point.
I was going to guess Mo Price, but Mo Price never went to BC. In fact, he was in Ottawa for that second year, I think. Live radio, folks. This is what we do.
Even though it's not.
Well, I mean, I'm not editing this stuff. What's his name? Oh, frick.
Do you want to know where he played? What position he played?
Oh, I don't.
Or do you want to really impress?
I have it on the tip of my tongue. I don't.
You're trying to pad your stats. You don't want to look weak now.
Oh.
I've made you feel weak.
That's his name. Eric Fraser.
You did it. You pulled it out of the hat on just the teams.
Yes.
That's a full point. That's a full 10 points.
Boom.
I'm gonna go in my notebook here and start the point system.
Oh man.
Although that's not whatever. we'll just remember now. Good job, Eric Fraser. He gets our mystery card. Eric Francis would not ever do well in the Canadian Football League.
Hockey season's starting in a month, man. You've got hockey on your brain if you're bringing up that name.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of stuff. But yeah, no, we had a pretty good years. Had a couple of pretty good years there. So throwing out a tribute to Eric Fraser on the mystery deck tonight.
All right, let's get on to our Week 12 predictions. And, of course, as we said, it's Labor Day where the real season starts. And we start off this Friday. No Thursday night games, as we said last week. Last week was the final Thursday night football game. I am going to miss it completely. Friday night, though, in Ottawa, the Montreal Alouettes, Anthony Pipkin takes on the Ottawa Redblacks, led by Trevor Harris. Tony, where do you see this one going?
Not where it went last week for the Montreal Alouettes, and Pipkin. He'll need to have one of the best games he have ever played. I don't think this is a Montreal Alouettes team that could take on the likes of Ottawa right now. I think this was kind of my confession on the show last week, where I was very much admitting that I picked the Ticats to be the best in the East, and I felt that Ottawa was getting overvalued for what they were going to bring to the table. But as the season has gone along, Ottawa's looked a very good football team. They've unfortunately faced some unfortunate losses and some bad situations, but it is an Ottawa team that I think is more than capable of handling the hype of Antonio Pipkin right now. And unless Montreal Alouettes' offensive line has gotten more consistently dominant over the last little bit, I don't think they've got too much to worry about on the Ottawa Redblacks' defensive side of the ball. I don't anticipate too much of a game here. A little bit of the wind coming out. It is in Ottawa. Maybe a letdown too. I don't know if you're someone who believes that game-to-game momentum is something that exists or not. In this case, even if it is, I don't think there's enough momentum from that win over the Toronto Argonauts. I think that was an Argonauts team that came up flat when it needed to be big, and I'm going to take Ottawa to win this one big, 37-10.
I'm with you, except for the score. I think there's a lot of confidence in that Montreal locker room, and I think that's going to come to play in the first quarter at the very least. And then I think they're just going to come to the realization that Ottawa has an offense, whereas Toronto did not. Defensively, I think Toronto and Ottawa is somewhat similar, although the stats may not show it. And I think it's going to be very tough for this guy playing in his third start to come across with Noel Thorpe's defense. But I'm with you on this one. I think by the time that they realized that Ottawa's not Toronto, Toronto's offense just wasn't really able to get off the foot or get off the ground running. There was a lot of things that went wrong within play calling, route running. I think they got lucky enough just to get into decent field goal range last week. And Montreal really depended on that screen pass that went to nowhere and a missed field goal return or a missed field goal that hit the upright. Ottawa's just they're running on all cylinders right now. They've got a lot of confidence. They've got a lot of talent. Defensively, there's probably maybe a little underperforming. Offensively, I'd like to see a little bit more consistency out of them. But at the end of the day, this is Montreal. I think they're done, as I said during our 3-down hot takes. I think Ottawa wins this one 32-15. Not much of a blowout, but I think something that really flatters the Ottawa Redblacks. Next game on the docket, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers go into Saskatchewan to play the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I'll go on and start on this one here for you. Just by virtue that it doesn't really matter. I've seen very strong Winnipeg teams go into this game and play very weak Saskatchewan teams. I still think Winnipeg's a better team overall than Saskatchewan. Everything from the quarterback all the way to the safety. I think Saskatchewan's got a better defense, way better defense. But as a team as a whole, I think Winnipeg's that much better. But again, it doesn't matter in this kind of game. I think Saskatchewan does win this one, and I think they win it quite handily. Just until maybe in the latter stages of the second half, where maybe Mike O'Shea says, "Hey, let's start Chris Trevler." By then, it's too late. I think Saskatchewan wins this one, 32-19. Tony.
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on in Winnipeg outside of football, and for me, it's all going to be how the team as a whole can handle it. The media has had their fun with Matt Nichols' comments, reading a story earlier today that Matt Nichols wanted nothing to do with talking about anything that's happened before the football game on when it was played Saturday, not talking to anyone this week. He's trying to say the right thing now, which, again, no surprise. Matt Nichols, good luck getting anything but a yes or a no out of Matt Nichols for the rest of the season if you are the media. And now it's going to see if his team was affected by it all. We reacted as fans. We reacted as media. And it's going to come down now to find out how that receiving core reacted to Matt Nichols' words. If they forgive him, if they thought it was nothing to start with at all, and that locker room is mellow, then it comes, oh, well, Matt Nichols and the coaching staff can bring that team together and build a game to attack a very fun to watch Saskatchewan defense, and one that's been definitely getting the job done for that team. I found it very insulting to the Saskatchewan Roughriders defense over the last couple of weeks, where Matt Dunnigan seems to want to give all the credit to Zach Collaros. And now I'm not saying this to upset Riders fans. I am really trying to tell you guys, you have a great defense there, and they can really get scary on everybody in the West really fast here. And if they can get the offense to match it, Saskatchewan becomes in the West right now, because the Saskatchewan's defense beat the Calgary Stampeders. They got to Bo Levi Mitchell. They got in his head. They were not able to rebound. Saskatchewan's defense once again came in and handled BC at the most crucial point of that game that they could. And for some reason, we want to say this is a better team with Zach Collaros on it. He's got one offensive touchdown since coming back in 2 weeks. He's got okay average numbers, nothing that's really going to make you say, wow, is he really ever destroying defenses right now and giving Saskatchewan a lot of confidence? Because to me, he hasn't done anything that's actually made Saskatchewan win games, actually contributed to a point where he has been the true threat out there, and the defenses of other teams have to stay on their toes to watch out for Zach Collaros. This is, again, I am not telling Saskatchewan Roughriders you have a bad team. I'm not telling their fans that you should get mad at what I'm saying. I'm saying you better not be so fanboy and fangirl to protect your team from what I'm saying, to be able to look at your quarterback and say, listen, bro, we're giving you $400,000 and you're not giving us $400,000 worth of quarterbacking right now. You are supposed to balance for us in this Western Division. He needs to get that back. If you're just going to have average quarterbacking or below average quarterbacking and one offensive touchdown through a football game, you're not going anywhere, and you're not going to cause trouble to Edmonton and Calgary when it comes to the postseason. So that's all I want to see. That defense right now is confidence. There is no other concern in Saskatchewan right now. Winnipeg, there is nothing but concern, because in Matt Nichols' head, he could even be thinking he's playing for his job right now. So until I can see that Matt Nichols can play his way out of this problem, and touch wood, Winnipeg's coaching staff is listening, let Matt Nichols play his way out of this. If they don't, if things go sour, this is not that difficult of a win for Saskatchewan. I'll take them at 28-17.
All right, next game is on the Monday, Labor Day. I have that day off, so I guess what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be watching 6 hours of football. The Edmonton Eskimos go into Calgary to face the Calgary Stampeders, fresh off their one-game winning streak. Yeah, there it is. Tony, where do you think this one's going?
This is going to come down to what Mike Riley can actually do. This is our first half MVP probably in the Canadian Football League. He is the best quarterback right now in the league. So now he's going to take on the best defense in the league, and maybe what we've seen several years in this Calgary Stampeders defense. If Edmonton can think up a lot of looks that this defense hasn't seen, they've got a chance. Because honestly, I've said it last week and I'm going to reiterate it this week. Do not go in trying to solve that Calgary Stampeders defense. Do enough against them to get some points on the board, because you can't. That defense is too ridiculous. If they can put up 3 or 4 touchdowns, well, hell, that's a bonus, and people are going to have a parade for you just based on that, because this Calgary Stampeders defense does not. Unfortunately, the Calgary Stampeders offense does. And if Winnipeg could have kept Calgary's offense on the football field a little bit longer, who knows if Winnipeg would have beat Calgary last week. Now, you'll say, well, Calgary's defense turned it on at the end of the game last week. Honestly, I think that was the worst 2 minutes of football I've ever seen a football team play when it comes to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They were fun touchdowns. Kamar Jordan's touchdown should not have been a touchdown with 3 Bombers in the vicinity, and they all kind of just bounce off of each other like bumper boats, and then Jordan's allowed to strut in to the end zone. He should have been down where contact was made. If the drive went on and they got a touchdown, don't make that argument, because that's not what happened. He should have been down on that play. And then, of course, I don't even know. I don't know what the hell what that was, but Matt Nichols just kind of tossing it to Davis and letting him stroll in. They were touchdowns. Calgary made them pay, but in the world were those two good touchdowns by the Calgary Stampeders, and the definition of a good touchdown. So if Edmonton can just take care, let the offense get themselves in trouble in Calgary, they've got a very good chance to win this football game. But I am going to take the Calgary Stampeders in a 31-28 win, because I just think the Stamps, they like playing in Labor Day in their own barn. There's so much drama there, so much emotion, and I mean, I'll probably end up taking a split when Labor Day is all said and done, and in the first half of this Labor Day back-to-back, I'm going to take the Stampeders.
I think I'm just going to make this short here, just because I think, Calgary's offense just really isn't as strong without Eric Rogers. But at the same time, Edmonton's defense, I mean, if there's one defense that really rivals Winnipeg's, it is Edmonton's. They've got a young secondary, notwithstanding guys like J.C. Sherritt or he's a linebacker, forget that, or guys like Aaron Grimes, right? So, I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs when we're comparing those two defense, and I think maybe Bo Levi will have his. I mean, if Calgary's offensive line could keep guys like Kwaku Boateng out of his hair or Alex Bazzi out of his grill, I think Calgary should win this one quite handily. I like Mike Riley enough to put up maybe a couple touchdowns. CJ Gable's probably going to be kept in check as his health is a concern for the Edmonton Eskimos. But I think at the end of the day, I think Calgary's just a better team at home, playing a very okay Edmonton Eskimo team. So I think Calgary's going to take this one 30-18. As we focus on the last game of the week, the Toronto Argonauts taking on the Hamilton Tiger Cats. First off, Tony, are we? Is there a restaurant that serves cats in Toronto?
I hope not.
You know where I'm going with this one, huh?
I do know where you're going with it. You got your.
I got my meme.
There.
I got my meme.
Yeah.
So if anybody's missing it, last week Tony went on a rant saying, "Hey, why do you hate Duron Carter? It's not like he eats kittens." And I put out a request saying, "Hey, someone make a meme out of that." So our good friend, I don't want to say his name, I'll say it, Joe Balaneski, sent out a meme. It's a picture of Duron Carter with a bowl of kittens, and it says, "So many kittens to eat." And now, granted, they are going to be they are playing in Hamilton, so Duron Carter's not going to be playing this week or the week after that, but I'm hoping that maybe sometime in week 14, Toronto's on the bye, so week 15, when Toronto hosts Saskatchewan on September 22nd, which will be good to face his old former team, where he'll be dancing around Saskatchewan secondary with a bowl of Catios or Kittenos, whatever you want, some kind of cereal. I'll start off with this one. I think that Hamilton, they had a very confidence-type win against the Edmonton Eskimos. Toronto, obviously, coming off the heartbreaking defeat against the Montreal Alouettes. At this time, I normally would just like to go with the better team because I think Hamilton, top to bottom, is better. I think quarterbacking is a concern. And the receivers. I mean, so many times where Jeremiah Masoli had his first two drives ended up with interceptions, and every time that he threw a targeted pass, like in the midst, his receivers dropped it. And notwithstanding, without the emergence of Luke Tasker, who pretty much outran every Edmonton Eskimo on that final drive, we might be singing a different tune as to whether or not Edmonton would have lost that game. But I digress. I still think Hamilton's a better team. They have that history against Toronto in this game. I think Hamilton will win this one. And I'm going to pick it a big-time score where maybe McLeod Bethel Thompson faces reality and maybe drops down to earth a little bit. I think Hamilton wins this one 40-19. Tony.
I think I owe you a quick response because I was long-winded, I think, on every game this week. So I will just give you a quick response. I like Bethel Thompson for a bounce-back football game against an inconsistent Jeremiah Masoli and Hamilton Tiger Cats. So I'll take 21-18 Argonauts over the Ticats in that Labor Day Classic.
All right, so if you're playing at home, we both take Ottawa, Saskatchewan, and Calgary, but we're splitting the game in Hamilton. I take the Hamilton Tiger Cats, you're taking the Argonauts. Well, that'll do it for episode 356 of the Canadian, or the Rouge Radio podcast, powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network. You can follow us on Twitter at Rouge Radio, myself at Rouge Dalts, Tony at Tony Rouge Radio. And speaking of Tony, you can actually catch him on the Canadian Football Countdown episode. I think it's episode 61. It's available to download. You can listen. It's the first time where Tony was able to review games as opposed to preview games. So you were probably caught for a loop, huh?
Well, it could be a bit of a mess, especially when we got to the BC-Saskatchewan game. Eddie asked, so break down the game. Like, yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. The kids and I were having a living room camp out, and they weren't feeling the football game after the first quarter and a bit. So we kind of goofed around and put a movie on, and then the kids passed out about 20 minutes because I wanted the kids to go to sleep, and I thought, well, what makes kids pass out more at night than in a situation like that than trying to stay up and watch a movie? So I put on a movie, and within 20 minutes they were both out, and I went back to the football game. So I really only saw a little bit at the beginning, and then I caught the fourth quarter, so it was a little tricky to do something like that reviewing games because sometimes I've got the memory of a goldfish, so everything about a game inside and out and stats doesn't always stick. So hopefully I didn't make too much of an ass of myself. Definitely not more than I do on this show, but I still could have screwed a lot up.
Well, give us your take if Tony made an ass out of himself. It's episode 61 of the Canadian Football Countdown Show with Ryan and Mike. Although I think Mike took his vacation. Final thoughts, Tony.
Yeah, did we get emails, man? Come on, you said you were going to have emails for us this week.
I didn't bring up emails.
We could tell me we can stretch out the show a little bit. What's my timer say? How much time do we have? Usually there's a little timer here. We got 7 minutes to make a full hour. Surely there is an email in there. I'm dying for email questions. Some of them can actually be pretty fun, but if you're not prepared, that's fine. I will take my final thoughts somewhere else. And it's just the same old broken record I do every time because I think it's as much as important now as it was last year when I said it. This is such a fantastic weekend in the Canadian Football League. I don't care what anyone says. There is no other weekend in the Canadian football, or there's no other weekend like this in professional sports where the same teams play each other basically in the same order, the same time of year, every single year, dating back 50 years. I'm sorry. You can have your rival weekends. You can have your interleague games where the Toronto Blue Jays will play the Philadelphia Phillies and the Atlanta Braves, and you'll have a little bit of nostalgia. The NFL can roll out weekends in the preseason. But to me, there is no weekend, especially the NHL. NHL has nothing close to this weekend. I'm sorry, but your Stadium Series and Heritage Classics have nothing on Labor Day weekend in the Canadian Football League because your one-offs do not match 50 years and plus of tradition in the Canadian Football League when you know especially you're going to have your Stamps, Eskimos, your Riders, Bombers, and your Ticats and Argonauts. It is the most unique, perfect weekend in sports.
Yeah, am I the only one that's really sick of the Heritage Classic sometimes or the Stadium Series? Like I
would imagine not. I imagine you are not alone in making that claim.
I love watching outdoor games. Do I like watching it every season? I don't. We just bring it out once every 5 years. Do you remember the first time they came out with that? I think it was Montreal and Edmonton, like back in 2003 or 4, somewhere around there. The next time that we had one was like 6 years later, and it felt, oh my God, I missed this. And then they had started bringing it out every year. I'm like, my God, this is crappy. And now they're bringing it with the freaking junior games.
Now there's 3 a season?
Oh my God, I can't. Yeah. I mean, it looks nice. Do I want to watch it? No, because the TV, the camera angle sucks. My God, I want to sit down and watch a hockey game, not a whole stadium watching a hockey game, because I can't because your angle sucks.
You know what? And for me, like, and again, those outdoor games, because we've kind of opened Pandora's box here, and it's just one of those things where it's like you of World Junior Hockey, because you've got a tournament game, round robin game where everything's important, and you put them in crappy weather conditions where there's snow and the ice can't hold together. And this is a CFL podcast. Sorry, I'll shut up right now because that is a hot button topic. That's a trigger topic for me, so I'll let it go. But you're right. Bringing it back, those Heritage Classics, those Stadium Series, which they have like 4 a season now, they do not hold a candle to what we do every weekend on Labor Day in the Canadian Football League.
Definitely. Tony, time for my weekly dad joke. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Yeah. I want to be a doctor because I'm addicted to hitting my patients on the knees to test their reflexes. Because I really get a kick out of it.
I just shook my head. Can you hear my eyes rolling through my microphone?
This is why it's beneficial if we're in the same studio.
Yeah, I think that's one where we could be periscoping it just to get a reaction. And that one was not one of the better ones. It felt like there was almost a little bit long to get to the punchline. So, but either way, it fits the docket as a dad joke. So there you go.
I saw a sign that made me crap myself. It said bathroom closed. Is that better?
I don't know if that's worse or better. Yikes.
How about, did you hear about the inmate that stuttered? He never finished. No. He never finished the sentence.
I should have saw that coming. Should have seen that one coming.
All right, for Tony, I'm Dalts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.